Hi, I'm Kennan. I am 28 years old and I work as an SDR. The topic that I want to discuss today is coming to terms with your neurodiversity in the workplace. So firstly, the feeling that I have is that a lot of people, especially young people, don't fully understand what their neurodiversity means or what support they need to sort of deal with it. And this can be due to a few reasons. Either they got their diagnosis late in life, just like me, or they got the diagnosis at an early stage in life, but they never received the appropriate treatment or support. So I'm going to share my story of how I came to terms with my ADHD and OCD in the workplace and what I learned about myself and what advice I can give to someone who is going through the same thing. So I was diagnosed with ADHD and OCD at the age of 19, which is considered pretty late, given that most people get diagnosed when they're in primary school. And I just wanted to add a little side note that ADHD or any neurodiversity is not something that you just simply grow out of. It's something that stays with you from the moment that you're born and is going to be with you for the rest of your life. So that's why it's very crucial to sort of understand yourself better so that you can create these support structures and coping mechanisms for yourself. Coming back to the story, although I was diagnosed when I was 19, I didn't really think anything of it until I got my first, big boy suit and a tie job at age 23. Because then I had all these things that I had to focus on, day planning, actually sitting down and focusing, writing emails, calling people, organizing my tasks, learning about the industry, being held accountable for my results and delivering on the expectations and so much more. And it became incredibly difficult to deal with it altogether. And I'd often feel, very overwhelmed and not knowing what to do, not knowing, what to start with and what I should do. And this kind of led me to feel extremely anxious and stressed. And that sort of led me to feel like a failure and feeling like someone who, wasn't cut out for the industry, someone who wasn't cut out, someone who wasn't smart enough to be like my colleagues. And when you start to get these feelings of self-doubt and also not knowing what to do with them, that's when it starts to have an effect on your mental health. So what I did to sort of deal with that is that firstly, I started to take medication that would help me to deal with my ADHD symptoms. The second thing that I did was that I started reading a lot about ADHD and I also started going to therapy. This was extremely helpful in the sense of, better understanding myself and also being able to identify how my ADHD manifests itself in certain situations and what the best way is to respond to it. So for example, if I had a morning when I was feeling very overwhelmed, instead of just simply putting my head down and getting on with it, I allowed myself to firstly accept that, accept that I'm feeling this way, telling myself that it's okay to feel this way, and then just take a step away from work and focus on something completely different that would take my mind off it. So in case if I'm working from home, I just lay down on the couch and watch telly for like 20 minutes. If I was in the office, I'd go out for a little walk, come back, recharged, I kind of got that out of my head and I was ready to focus on the tasks I had for today. So, the advice that I would give to someone that is going through the same thing that I'm doing is firstly, stop, take a breath, accept who you are, because your symptoms will never go away and they will never change. What does change is your understanding of them and your understanding of yourself. So allow yourself to get to know all of you, the good and the bad, because it's then when you start to develop these structures and tools that will help you. And once you start to understand how to deal with your symptoms, that's when you start to identify on how these things can be applicable in the workplace. And that can be anything from, knowing where to sit in the office or knowing what you should listen to that helps you focus. For me, I either listen to green noise on YouTube or some really, really filthy house on SoundCloud. And then also what I would also say is that, you kind of, the second advice that I want to give to you is that you need to be mindful of who you speak to about your neurodiversity in the workplace. Because sadly, not everyone has the same understanding or acceptance to neurodiversity, and they don't really have the full understanding of what it is, and they won't be able to give you any support either. So I would say that you should definitely speak to someone in HR or a mental health first aider. And lastly, this is my advice that I would give to management in the workplace on what they can do to support their employees with the neurodiversity. And the first thing I need to say is that you need to take time to understand what their neurodiversity means and how it affects your employees. And you also need to understand that you have a legal obligation to make reasonable adjustments for people with neurodiversity. And these can be very simple things, like being able to offer a more flexible work schedule, offer better remote working schedule, avoid hot desking or moving desks of someone who is neurodiverse, because that was very difficult for me. Have dedicated quiet spaces in the office where people can sit down without being distracted, or just allow noise cancelling headphones. Maybe replace that with that flashy cycle to work scheme that literally no one is interested in. So that is pretty much it. I hope you found this helpful. I really do. And I would thank you, and I would like to thank Alexandra and Unveiled as well for giving me, this platform and for allowing me to share my story. So again, thank you very much. I hope you found this helpful, and don't forget to love yourself.